yesterday's attacks and other things.
Some say that he does have ties to Muslim extremists. I don't know.
The entire world is in a war against a common enemy, COVID-19, the latest version of coronavirus. As countries around the globe are totally focused on battling against this enemy of the human race, in Iran, people are fighting simultaneously on yet another front, U.S. unilateral sanctions, tailored to take a heavy toll on them. Despite the severity of the pandemic and the brutality of the sanctions regime, the nation is in pretty good shape, much to the dismay of the hawks in the White House. The Trump administration has repeatedly imposed unilateral sanctions on Tehran as part of its so-called maximum pressure campaign. With the coronavirus outbreak, world leaders and rights groups have called on Washington to ease the sanctions for humanitarian reasons.
The US have sanctions against 20 countries worldwide, nearly a third of the world's population, depriving people of essential medicines and hygiene supplies. The WHO recently faced delays in supplying Iran with testing equipment. We're killing people.
Digging its heels in, the United States, however, has put more economic pressure on the country by slapping fresh rounds of sanctions.
Today, the Trump administration is taking action to hold the Iranian regime accountable. I am announcing that the United States is sanctioning 5 senior regime officials under Executive Order 13876. Iranians have assets around the world, and so where those assets are located, anybody who has those assets should freeze them.
This comes at a time when the U.S. itself, as the symbol of the powerful West, has come face to face with the nightmare medical scenario.
So today was the first day that I've worked since our unit was designated the second COVID ICU in my hospital. And I don't know what the just happened for the past 13 hours. Honestly, guys, it felt like I was working in a war zone. Completely isolated from my team members, limited resources, limited supplies, limited responses from physicians because they're just as overwhelmed as we are dealing with a ton of other stuff. So basically, I just spent the last 13 hours treating 2 critically ill COVID patients on the vent, basically by myself. And this is my new normal for the next however many months that it takes for this virus to die down. So, I'm already breaking. So for fuck's sake, people, please take this seriously. This is so bad.
The new sanctions meant to incapacitate the Iranian healthcare system in combating the pandemic, or as the Iranian foreign minister puts it, to wage a medical terror against the country.
My country is among the hardest hit by the coronavirus. Even as, like other nations, we are now learning how to better confront it. Sadly, a huge part of the danger Iranians face is due to restrictions unjustly imposed on them by the United States government. Iran today is the most intensely sanctioned country in history, not in line with United Nations decisions, but contrary to them. The economic siege imposed on us impedes all legitimate trade and deprives us from our own resources, the ones necessary to address the needs of our people, including their health and livelihoods. Even amid this pandemic, the US government has vengefully refused to lift its unlawful and collective punishment, making it virtually impossible for us to even buy medicine and medical equipment.
Some analysts say the Trump administration considers the virus an additional tool in tandem with sanctions to force Iran to cave in to American demands, including a renegotiated, tougher nuclear agreement. In the words of Ali Vaez, Iran Director for International Crisis Group, the Trump administration believes that the outbreak has succeeded where sanctions failed to weaken the economy even further. They think that the timeline for bringing Iran to its knees has shortened because of the coronavirus. The White House says that its sanctions exempt the sale of medicine and medical devices to Iran. But the point the White House does not say is that its secondary sanctions on financial institutions and companies that do business with Iran have made it nearly impossible for Iran to buy items like ventilators, test kits, X-ray machines, and other supplies. According to the U.S. Treasury Department, the number of license applications for additional medical trade with Iran has dropped since the Obama administration, with 220 applications in the fourth quarter of 2016 versus only 36 applications in the first quarter of 2019, the latest available figure. In late March, U.S. Senator Chris Murphy tweeted, "U.S. sanctions are stopping medical equipment from being sent to Iran. As a result, innocent people are dying." Meanwhile, the U.S. plans to block Iran's requested $5 billion emergency loan from the International Monetary Fund for fighting its coronavirus crisis.
یکی از سناتورهای غربی همین چند روز گفته بود که غرب وحشی زنده شده. این حرف اوناست. ما وقتی که بگیم غرب یک روح وحشیگری درش وجود داره که با ظاهر آراسته و اتکلون زده و کراوات بستش منافاتی نداره، بعضیا تعجب میکنن و انکار میکنن. این حالا خودشون میگن این نماد زنده شدن غرب وحشی است.
Iranian-American author Houman Majd considers the plan immoral. He says if we're asking our people to take care of our fellow human beings by not going to restaurants, not going to movies, and by suspending our lives, can't we suspend the sanctions, even if you don't want to lift them? If one side of the coin is the immorality and inhumanity of the Trump administration, the other side is the remarkable resilience of the Iranian nation. Years of unjust sanctions have made the people seasoned citizens in the face of unexpected crises, the silver lining of the U.S. enmity.
Over the last few days, we've visited a hospital and a clinic. As the Deputy Minister said, the medical staff, the nursing staff are very hard-working, very dedicated. And I think the quality of care that we saw in those facilities was good. I think you've made very good progress on testing for the disease. Already in Iran, there are 22 laboratories across the country that can diagnose the disease, and soon that'll be 41. That's very impressive progress in a relatively short period of time.
Regardless of the initial shock, the Iranian nation has managed to pull itself together in the shortest possible time, overcoming the early shortcomings and avoiding the problems even the most advanced countries in the world have to face.
اوایل خیلی سخت بود کار، چون اینکه هنوز این ساماندهی یا این سازماندهی یا این مدیریت خیلی پررنگ نشده بود و یه سری مشکلات هم داشتیم که خیلیش برمیگشت به همین تحریم ها، نبودن لباس‌های مخصوص و ماسک‌های مخصوص مورد نیازمون یا حتی مایع ضد عفونی کننده. خب اوایل یه مقدار این کمبود حس، ولی با توجه به مدیریتی که انجام شد و تلاش‌هایی که صورت گرفت و حتی همونجوری که در جریان هستید تولیداتی که توی خود کشور داره انجام میشه، خیلی‌ها الان تیم‌های جهادی، کارگروه‌های حرفه‌ای به این کار روی آوردن. خیلی از خط تولیدایی که محصولات دیگه‌ای از بهداشتی رو تولید می‌کردن الان خط تولید لباس، شیلد، عینک و یا حتی مایع ضد عفونی کننده هستن و فعلا در حال حاضر خدا رو شکر مشکل خاصی نداریم.
تقریبا میشه گفت از ماه اسفند شروع کردیم برای تولید ماسکان، ملحفه و اقلامی که برای مبارزه با کرونا هست و دوستان به صورت جهادی اومدن بدون هیچ هزینه یا چیزی.
Like many other crises, the coronavirus crisis will come to an end sooner or later. But what will go down in history is the inhumanity of the US leaders against the Iranian nation in the worst of times.